talking to you on the ones and twos. DJ Niecy D spreading the news. Nubian Queen worldwide play that. New music, she ain't scared to break that. DJ Niecy D, I like it when you play my song. Niecy D,
Hey, it's your girl DJ Niecy D. Welcome back to another episode of the Niecy D Show, coming to you from the Blue Sky Media Group studios. Yes. And my guest today is none other than Florida State Representative, House of Representative, Mr. Bruce Antone, my dog.
All right. Good morning, Niecy D. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. The last time we talked, it was actually a phoner.
Right.
And I believe I was working with the Central Florida Advocate as their entertainment editor at the time. So thank you. It's been a minute. We got to catch up.
We do. We certainly do.
Okay, so for those who don't know, House of Representative for District 46, yes?
Former.
Former.
As of last November.
In my heart, always. But okay, we'll do it correctly. Former. And that was a former good 7 years, was it?
Actually, it was 12.
12 years. So from...
I did from 2002 to 2006.
2002 to 2006.
And then from 2012 until 2020.
Okay, from 12 to 20. Fantastic. So I guess I'm going to start with the first question being, what was the appeal? What made you want to go that route?
All right. So let me think about this. Way back in college, way back in the 80s, I had a dream about being some kind of black leader. And so, leaders would come to Tuskegee like Dick Gregory.
Shout out to Tuskegee.
yeah. Kwame Ture, Jesse Jackson, all those guys. And I said, man, I want to get involved in the community. So over the years, when I was working at IBM, I would do mentoring programs. I wanted to get involved. I wanted to see voting turnout. I left IBM in 1992. And there was a white guy looking for somebody to work on this campaign, and he was a guy by the name of Buddy Dyer. And so I went to work for Buddy Dyer, who's a candidate for state senate. Then he became state senator, so I was his chief of staff for 8 years. And over that time, you say, man, the black community has to learn how to use politics to improve its community. To improve
select the rewind. Can you please repeat that? Because that's paramount. I think that's where we fall short holistically.
Yeah.
Say that again.
But politics is so important to every community.
Yes.
And especially to African-American communities, minority communities that have been left behind over the years. So you've got issues like a lack of housing, a lack of infrastructure, no street lights, too many black kids being arrested for long time. You got healthcare issues, all those kind of things. And so having worked for State Senator Buddy Dyer for 8 years, I learned the process. I learned from the best. And so then I ran for office and I lost twice. Okay. And then I won the third time.
All right.
And so it's just been
let me
bliss
ask you,
every time.
I want to jump in. When you lost those two times, I'm sure there were some learning curves or motivations. What do you think was the reason behind those two, I don't even like to say fails, but those two lessons?
Yeah. Well, you could say failures, what have you. But the first time, I was just up against a guy who was better known in the community. He had a lot of resources, and he had all of the black elected officials behind him.
Okay.
The second time, I was up against that same kind of machine.
Okay.
All right. And then the third time, surprisingly, folks said, well, it's Bruce's time.
Okay.
And so then those folks jumped behind me, and I got elected. And then I just kept at it. And so it was a great experience. I was only the third African-American elected to the legislature from Central Florida in all of history.
Wow.
And so
even to this day?
So today I would, So there's only been two after me.
Okay.
So only, in the State House, I'm sorry. So I was the third following Alzo Reddick.
Yes.
And then Gary Siplin, then myself, then Geraldine Thompson came behind me, then I got elected again, and then Traveris McCurdy has followed me.
Okay.
So he is like the sixth person.
Okay, fantastic. And so, all right, you get there, you make it. Were you shocked? Were you super excited? Were you surprised? Was it like, okay, now the work starts?
Well,
and the reason I ask is because I can't forget the expression on Trump's face, for example, when he realized he won. He looks shocked. So, you put the work in, you're grinding, you're campaigning, and then it happens.
well, when I got there, it was overwhelming because it's a much bigger job than even I had anticipated. Because you got folks coming at you every day with some kind of request.
Okay.
Can you get the trash picked up? Man, my backyard is flooding. Man, I know you can call the bank and make them give me a $5 million loan. Who are you? We ever met before?
Oh, because I really wanted to know how to get that $5 million loan. I was really that ear perked up. Like, wait, what?
And then you have folks, and I'm just clowning now. So you have folk that work against you to make sure you don't get elected. And they sitting across from you in a restaurant at Johnson Diner talking about, well, we can help you, but we need your help.
Right.
And so everybody in the restaurant looking around like, oh, Bruce ain't helping you, and them folk didn't even know me.
Yeah.
But it is I can say on one hand, it's an overrated job, but it's an important job. And so I was one of 120 in the House of Representatives. And then, man, you have to deal with so many issues in a short period of time. We're only there in Tallahassee 60 days. You're trying to put together a budget. So when I first started with Dyer, the budget in the state was $26 billion. This year, it'll almost be $100 billion.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so the whole process is about dividing up the pie.
And I was going to say, so when we're talking about funds and budgeting and bills passing and so forth, one, my question is, what is your process in what projects you do support or bills that you do support? And how dear do they become to you?
Okay. Well, again, for me, representing an African-American district, you just got need everywhere. So you have the city mayor coming to you. Hey, man, can you help us with this? You got the county mayor. You got the people in the community. You have the nonprofit organizations coming to you, whether it's the Paramore Kids Zone, whether it's Evans High School Community School, whether it's the American Cancer Society. And then there's just a multitude of nonprofit organizations and community. And so you say, man, let me figure out what I can actually get done. So I have to go through this process in my mind. All of this is important, extremely important. But what has the best chance of being successful? And that's kind of how I go about it. And so, again,
now being successful in the process of being voted for, okay, as well as being successful in how many people it will affect in the community. Or
it's kind of a combination of both.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can do stuff that will work on stuff that will affect a lot of folks. Say like there's an affordable housing trust fund. So every year when somebody buys a piece of property, you pay dock stamps, and it generates about $400 million a year specifically for affordable housing. And so that money's supposed to be spent for affordable housing.
Okay.
Well, when the recession came about in 2008, the Republican-led legislature decided to take that money and start spending it elsewhere. So, and I'm bringing this back full circle. So when I became chair of the Black Caucus, man, I'm like, we're not going to let them take that affordable housing money and use it.
They're reallocating funds. So where they were allocated for a particular project, meaning housing, for example, and then they take them and redirect them somewhere else. Then now your constituents, the people
don't have
who
any
are
housing.
looking for your support and expecting your support, are disappointed.
Yeah. And like I say, we got a housing crisis here. So one-bedroom apartments on average cost about $1,300 a month. There's just not enough affordable housing. You got families staying 3 and 4 and 5 families in one house. You got all those apartments on Lee Road, Orange Blossom Trail, Highway 50. Can you imagine 20 folks staying in a 500 square foot
since
hotel?
It's unheard of, but it happens. That's the sad part. So since we're on this, and it really wasn't what I was going to focus on, and we are going to jump around, but so how does this happen? How does it come across your desk? We have gentrification.
Uh-huh.
We have people living in areas where they're barely making it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have major development coming in and cities expanding.
Right.
And while some cities are expanding, we have other small cities, historical cities,
Mm-hmm.
towns that are decreasing. They're getting squeezed out.
Mm-hmm.
How does this happen?
Well, you know, gentrification.
I know it's a long story.
no, and reel me in if I get out
yeah.
there. So gentrification in my mind is nothing more than redevelopment.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a whole bunch of rundown stuff, and somebody says, man, I can make some money redeveloping whatever's over there. Mm-hmm. And so it really is just a function of time. Everything changes with time. Mm-hmm. Communities either improve or they get worse. Mm-hmm. And so gentrification is just when you raise the property value so much, the taxes go up and it just pushes everybody out. But the gentrification is not only happening in Orlando, so you see it happening in, right, across the coast. But it's happening right now in the Paramore community. Yes. It's happening by the Camping World Stadium. Yes. It's happening in Pine Hills, and folks don't realize that. It's going to take place in Eatonville, but it's happening across the country. You got places.
But it adversely affects the people in those communities. And these are the things that you hear in the rumor mill, in the streets, or in households, where, okay, if the prices of the taxes are going up, the property taxes are going up, but the income for those residents are not increasing, and then they get displaced. Where's the trade-off? What happens to these people?
They get pushed further and further out. And so one of the good things about Florida is we have an amendment that was passed by the voters many years ago called Save Our Homes. Okay. So if you own your home, your property taxes, and you file homestead, your property taxes can only go up so much. And it's minuscule compared to if you don't own it.
And you're renting.
And you're renting.
Yes.
But, I mean, folks just see an opportunity, and they come in and buy up this cheap property because you have folks that will sell their property for nothing. And I'll give you a quick example. So West Winter Park, years ago, and some friends of mine, they were hired by a developer to go in there and to get all these black folks to sell their homes. So these folks sold their homes for $20,000, $25,000, right? Thinking they got a windfall. Right. Well, guess what? That was on enough rent for 2 years. And so those same houses that sold for $25,000, they've either been renovated or somebody came in and built something there, and now the houses are $500,000.
So what are some of the reasons? Lack of education.
Lack of education.
Right.
Folk want to make a quick dollar.
Making a quick dollar, not realizing the value of what they have
the home.
if they themselves did the renovating and stayed. Not being a homeowner, renting from some landlord who is like, hey, I'm going to make this buck. You've been here. You didn't prove yourself. It's not my fault. Keep it moving. And so we have these continuous situations, but it just seems like they are constantly isolated to the same demographic.
They are. And again.
So then how do we improve that?
We have to educate folks to hold on to your property. You know, renovate that property, do whatever. Or if you're going to sell it to somebody, maybe sell it to somebody who looks like you that will give you a fair dollar value for your home. I'm not so sure you can really stop it. Right. You know, you go to Atlanta around the King Center, the Dr. Martin Luther King Center. So 30 years ago, man, it was just kind of a rundown area. You go there now, there's townhomes, there's BMW, there's Mercedes parked on the street. You look around, you're like, whoa, what happened here? Baldwin Hills in Los Angeles. That used to be the kind of middle class, upper income area for African Americans. Now those families are selling their homes. And young white families are coming in and paying $1 million for the homes. My little brother lives in San Quentin. So he doesn't live in the prison, but he lives on the prison ground. Okay. His wife is the director of nursing at San Quentin Prison. The average price of a home out there is $850,000. But because folks cannot afford to stay in San Francisco, they go out and they buy some rundown homes and they fix them up. So again, it's just something that's happening
really
everywhere.
Learning the game, learning the trade.
Right.
So that you can get on the upswing of things. Right.
Now, the problem is you really don't have African Americans or Hispanics going in and doing the same thing. They don't go in and buy the homes for inexpensive prices and redevelop. So that's part of the education process, too, is we have to educate folks that have some money, whether it be African American, Hispanic, Caribbean, what have you, you go in those same communities.
Are there any programs out there available? Are there any that we know of?
A bank that won't give you a loan. Yeah.
So then that means we got to direct them over to, I think it's what, Greenwood, this new
Greenwood,
Black-owned,
Axiom,
find a
or we've got to pool our money.
So crowdfunding is becoming big, right?
Right. And so one of the things I thought about this year is, minorities really have to start some banks, so credit unions, but they've got to start their own banks,
so that they can fund their projects.
Right, yeah. And so we've got enough money. I mean, you look at the Black Enterprise 100 list, there's some folks with some billion-dollar companies there, right?
You guys go online, find these places and educate yourselves. There's, at this point, with so much social media and so much access, everything is available. Just Google it, search for it, find it. So let's talk about some of the appropriations and projects that you had a hand in, and where you allocated some funds in these very communities.
Okay.
So you did your part while you were there, right? So let's talk about it.
Well, and so let me talk about one I'm most proudest of is, and that's our historically Black colleges and universities in the state of Florida.
All right. Shout out to Florida Memorial now University. It was Florida Memorial College when I went. It's Florida Memorial University now. Miami. All right. Wow. That's where I met Luke. That's a whole nother show. Okay. It is.
Luke's a good guy.
Yes, he is. Yes,
good
he
guy.
is.
So for years, we had only been funding our three private historical Black colleges and universities, $12 million a year. So that was Florida Memorial University, Edward Waters College, and Bethune-Cookman. And so all of those schools needed some additional money. And so actually last year, Judge Belvin Perry called me and said, Bruce, we need some help. Can you help us get some additional money for these universities? And so we tried to get $50 million. We got $30 million. But $30 million was equivalent to 2,500 full scholarships at those three schools. Now, their total enrollment is about 5,000. So we put enough money in the budget, and it just happened to work out that way, so that every student can get a half year's tuition, which is about $7,500. Yeah,
That's very helpful.
And so, whereas they'd only be getting $12 million a year, so over 5 years, that would have been $60 million. Where it works out now, in 5 years, they'll get $150 million. In 10 years, they'll get $300 million. Okay. But again, there's all this money so kids can go to school. And what the guy at Edward Waters College did, he said, for any student that was enrolled, you got a shortage on tuition, books, fees, dormitory, what have you. We'll take care of it for you. Okay. And so that's why we put that money there. So that was one of the things. FAMU needed a new building, something they called the Center for Academic Student Services. They were trying to consolidate their financial aid, their mental health counseling, their academic counseling, some administrative stuff in one building. And the legislature wouldn't give them the money. Okay. And so as the chairman of the Black Caucus, I kind of flexed out muscle.
Okay.
And
flex sometimes to help our people.
And took advantage of something that Florida State and University of Florida were doing. They had a program in place called CARES that was there to help all of their African-American students graduate. And they have the highest graduation rates in the state. So I said, man, y'all are funding this stuff over here at Florida State, which is right down the street from FAMU. Yes. They've been asking for this money for this building for 5 years. Can we get the money? And so we got the money. And the budget chair and the Speaker of the House told them they needed to name something after Bruce Antone, whether it be a room or the building. And so, Dr. Robinson, you need to name that building after me, because otherwise I'm going to show up with some concrete, pour my own concrete, put my fingerprints there, and write my name in front of it.
He'll do it. Let's get this done, because you coming.
But so it was 100,000, and I'm sorry for that.
No, I love it. I listen. So I already know the personality and how jovial you are, and I just love it. So I want you all to see this side, because hardworking for sure, but fun guy. Oh my gosh, you guys have no idea.
So they built this building, and then they spent $100 and some thousand on this big 50-foot long Cobra or something. But Dr. Robinson, you need to name that building after me. I keep telling you that. So,
all right, Dr. Robinson.
so that was the thing. Oh, and I've been asking for doctorate degrees from Florida Memorial, Edward Waters, and Bethune-Cookman. So
Okay,
Bethune,
you guys get it right now.
yeah, they promised me my degree. So that was that. But Valencia State College right here in Central Florida is the largest state college in the state of Florida. So they have about 80,000 students.
Wow.
But they were the
I didn't know
lowest
that.
funded. Yeah, they're huge. But they were the lowest funded on a per student basis. And so they asked me, and at the time it was Dr. Felicia Williams and a guy by the name of Jay Galbert, who was their legislative affairs. They were like, Bruce, we need an extra $10 million. And so again, I just went and asked.
Right.
And we got the money.
Well, and that brings, not that you are a lobbyist or anything like that, but it brings to mind, that's what lobbyists do. They go out and they find the funding and the support for programs and initiatives.
Right.
So do you find that you may work your way into that position? Because the need is there for a lot of these, communities still.
Eventually I will, but there's a 5-year lobbying ban. So former legislators cannot lobby the legislature or state agencies for 5 years after you leave. So it'll be 2026 before I can do it. But again, I can advocate, so I can call my friends up there and say, man, if you can find a way to help out the Paramore Kids Zone or I'm just trying to think, the Boys and Girls Club or somebody, please do Urban League. Yeah.
So, and I also noticed that some of the funding that you provided and supported were for initiatives, not only for the city of Eatonville, Pine Hills, Edward Waters, but I think there was a star base. So there's been science and technology.
Right.
Please talk about that, because we need people there. We need us there. Talk about that.
Well, the Star-Based program was something I modeled after a program the United States National Guard has been doing for years.
Okay.
And what they try to do is they try to go into inner city communities and set up mentoring programs that will guide minority kids, whether it be African American, Hispanic, Haitian, Jamaican, what have you, into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics professions. So you introduce them to careers, you introduce them to professionals. Yes. And so this money that we got for the Urban League, the Star Base, was set there to say, hey, we're going to have engineering day. So we're going to bring some engineers in from NASA to talk about what they do, how they send folks into space, how they keep them alive, how they develop this technology, which then becomes cell phone technology, which then becomes a special coding, which then becomes some special process or what have you. We're going to bring in the folks from the crime scene investigation office and the sheriff's office. And they'll talk to you all day about how science is used to solve a crime. You shoot a bullet, the ballistics, the chemicals
and
you use.
This is really what people need to know.
Right.
And not sit back going, this, that, and the other, and fake CSI from watching TV and not really understanding the mechanics and the real science behind it.
Right.
So, so is that program, is that still in existence, or is there going to be a revision to it? Where are we with that program?
They screwed it up.
He screwed it up.
Yeah.
We're just so transparent here.
I laid it out for them, and they screwed it up. Yeah. But the concept is
we
great.
Need somebody to unscrew it because that's a very good and necessary program.
Actually, I put in a request this year as a citizen for $250,000 to do that same thing. So it's in the Senate budget now. Hopefully it'll get in the House budget. All right. And then we can recreate that program, and then it'll be under my control. Okay. And we'll make sure it's done right.
Ask you, I do a lot of things.
Right.
Swimming, riding horses, DJing, all that, right? So I want to ask about swimming.
Right.
And the percentages of drownings and so forth, right? So how often, if at all, do initiatives and programs like that come across the desk? Because there's definitely funding needed in those areas to help teach minority kids how to swim, for jobs, for counseling, grief counseling, all types of things like that. Do you ever, or did you ever have that cross your desk?
It crossed my desk when I worked as the business manager for Macedonia way back in 2009. And so we kind of partnered up with the YMCA to teach kids swimming. So they were doing something.
It's going, it's going down outside, y'all. I don't know if you can hear the thunder, but if you didn't, we'll let you know.
And I know you had reached out to me some years ago. I went back in the legislature then about getting some funding to do swimming over at the Smith Center, I believe. But that really doesn't come up much, but we need to make that a priority because minority kids need to learn how to swim. Half of it is there's not enough pools in their communities, so it's not an everyday thing for Black kids.
Well, maybe I can be a catalyst and join forces with you to see if we can make some things happen. I definitely want to do a sidebar with you about that because I know there's a need, huge need. So with that said, I wanted to also talk about the Orange County Public School STEM project. Okay. All right. And then we're gonna one other question after that, and then we're gonna start to wrap it up.
Okay.
Right.
But yeah, so with STEM, man, we just have to encourage as many of our students, period, to go into these STEM careers because they pay a whole lot of money.
Yeah, so if y'all want to ball out and be a boss, you know what I'm saying? You need to talk about technology, STEMs, coding, that kind of stuff, yeah?
All right. So we tried to get that set up with the Urban League.
Okay.
And it didn't work out.
Okay, so
let me stop.
You know what? But you know what? No, this is good because for those that are watching and listening and probably tickled right now because you're just so transparent. Maybe someone's like, well, hey, I'd like to get in contact with them and see if I can put something together because I've always wanted to do something like that. We never know who's inspired.
Right. And so we really have to start reaching out and saying, hey, man, who wants to work with us? But at the time we were trying to do this thing, too, the Orange County Technical Career College was offering to come in and teach coding at Jones, at Evans, at Wekiva, and at Oak Ridge.
Okay.
At the time, the principals were having so many challenges trying to get their grades up.
Okay.
They said this is way too much.
Okay.
But that opportunity, I think, still exists.
So hopefully so. Hopefully so. Whoever's out there watching, and those who know you, let's circle back.
Yeah.
Because these are the fields that are the future. These are the fields that are really necessary.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And let me tell you the other part of that program that we were trying to do at the time. And it has come to fruition.
Okay.
And so what I was trying to do was use some technology then, and this was 4 or 5 years ago, to teach kids at Evans and Jones dance.
Okay.
All right. And we had talked to Tatiana over at the Russian Ballet on Mills. Her dad danced with Mikhail Baryshnikov.
All right.
And so we were going to use, at that time, which was a forerunner of Zoom technology, to teach these kids at Jones and Evans dance, whether it be ballet, whether it be tap dance, or what have you. But she was going to be able to teach from her facility. We're going to put some big screen TVs up at the schools, and they had their laptops, and we're going to teach these kids dance. So now at Wekiva, they are actually using Zoom to teach kids violin and cello because of the pandemic. So
that's
it's
really
starting.
Good. Yeah, that's good because we definitely need instrumentation back into the schools and the arts and so forth. So that's really good. Yeah. So real quick, how can people contact you? If someone's like, look, I need some funding, I have something, doesn't mean he's going to say okay to everything because I got a long list that I'm going to hit him with. But how can they reach you?
I would just tell folks you can email me at bantone39@aol.com. So that's BANTONE39@aol.com. Or they can direct message me on Facebook. I ain't giving out my cell phone. If you don't have my cell phone already, too bad, so sad, But y'all can direct message me on Facebook. And I'll do what I can. Yeah.
All right. So, we love music. Right. We love music. So real quick before we bring this to a close, who are you listening to these days? Who are you rocking with right now?
Lil Duval, some of the old stuff. I mean, Earth, Wind, and
Duval.
Fire.
Oh, yeah, Versus.
Isley
Did
Brothers.
you see the Versus?
I did.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah. So I'm still an old school guy. I'm still a Norman Brown kind of guy. Okay. George Benson.
Yes.
I eventually catch up with the new stuff, but still Master P. Yeah. Still some Luke stuff.
He's the greatest entrepreneur, that Master P.
He is.
Yeah,
He is. He's done some phenomenal things.
For real,
I think
seriously.
now he's working on a grocery store or something somewhere.
He's got noodles and all kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Look, I'm trying to get my entrepreneur game up to par. So thank you so much. Is there anything that we can go on forever. Is there anything that you want to say real quick before we go that maybe I didn't touch on? I mean, it's so much. You've had such a long, lustrous career, and it ain't over.
Tell your gorgeous, beautiful mother I said hello.
I will.
She is pulchritudinous, beautiful. She just takes my breath away. So, thank you.
There you have it. Oh man, I love it. Dime approved.
Yeah, there you go. Dime.
Thank you so much, former Florida State House of Representative Mr. Bruce Antone for District 46. This is Niecy D coming to you from the Blue Sky Media Group studios. I love y'all. Talk to you later. Peace.